Hi, everyone. Welcome to our live Regents review on July 4th. Okay, I just need to make sure my sound was working. It is working enough. First things first, I want to thank everyone for joining us on a summer's day. Nobody wants to be doing schoolwork, I know, on a summer's day, but you're here and you're showing an interest, and that's awesome. So a couple of things to be aware of for tonight's review. One is that we're going to be working on out of our U.S. History Regents Review packet. If you are not currently a student of mine and you'd like one of these, I can't link them, but I can certainly show you where to go to get them. I can email them to you and such if you are interested in joining this particular review packet with us. And if you are working with me in that packet, we will be working on pages 1 through 26 today. And I have a couple of apologies to make in advance before we go too far into this. I am recording with a totally different computer than my own. I'm at my parents' house in New Jersey. So I just wanted to kind of let everyone know what's going on. Okay. The other thing, sorry, hearing weird sounds, is that because we're doing this in the packet today, I'll be looking down quite a bit and working with you guys on specific questions. And I'm glad I see my first comment up today. I'm glad that you passed your Regents. That's awesome. Always great to hear. I don't know if you're taking the American History Regents, that is where we're looking to focus for today for the upcoming Regents that will be in August. I think it's the 15th. I don't know the date of the summer Regents. So again, we're going to go through this kind of packet by packet, section by section, go through the questions that are in there. So this will be a slightly slower review than other ones we've done. So the first topic we're going to look at today is geography. When we look at the way the Regents is written, usually within the first 5 questions, you may get 1 or 2 questions referring specifically to geography. And if you're looking at your packet, you'll see some things that it's talking about. It's talking about the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean being influential because it allows the United States to be isolated for a long period of time from kind of other world affairs. And we also have great natural harbors, particularly on the New England colonies. So Maine, Vermont, well, Vermont doesn't have harbors because it's landlocked, but New Hampshire to some tiny extent, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, New York, known for great natural harbors and how that works really well in their favor. And that that really develops an area of commerce, and commerce means money or business. When you see commerce, you just want to kind of analyze that to mean money. I also want to point out anyone who's watching, we have a live chat going. Please ask any questions you have. Again, as we go through the packet, I'm going to be answering just straight up and giving you the answers to the packet questions. So if you have any questions on the answers, let's really dive into those. Some other things you need to know about the geography. You want to know about the Proclamation Line of 1763. This is a border that is established after the French and Indian War as the kind of final boundary of the Western frontier. It basically stops any white civilization from going past the Appalachian Mountains. One of the reasons the English said that this was necessary was to protect the white settlers from Native American attacks. Maybe not. So, and again, that's bordering right there in the Appalachian Mountains. The Appalachian Mountains stretch from Georgia to Maine. They're small. They're the great grandchildren of the Rocky Mountains. Nope, they're the great grandparents of the Rocky Mountains. So they're very old mountains. They're not particularly steep or stiff, but they're hard to climb. And they go up in the entire eastern seaboard. So talking about like colonial times, eastern seaboard, those northern colonies versus those southern colonies. What is the geographical difference between those things? Those are important to understand. The North is known for colder climates. Again, when we talk about the North, we might be talking about the North and middle colonies kind of falling in this line. So you're looking at Maine, even though Maine's not a colony entirely, the land's still there. Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York. Then you start to move into the middle colonies, which also includes New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and then you start to move into those southern colonies, which we'll talk about in a minute. So again, the northern colonies, they're known for colder climates, rocky soil, irregular coastlines, good natural harbors. That's what the North is known for. So notice what it's not known for. It's not known for farming. Okay, that's kind of key, because when we go down, we look now at the South. What is the South known for? Those southern colonies, Virginia, Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina. Did those out of order. What are those known for? They're known for warm climates. They're known for good soil. They're known for agriculture. They're known for their farming. And that's really important, because that's going to take us through the slave times, because they're going to be able to grow a lot of things that Northerners aren't going to grow, like cotton. And so because they can grow cotton, they need slaves to pick the cotton. So it's really important to understand why those differences occur. What else do I need to say about that? Slave labor. Okay. And then moving westward, geography-wise, we have an area of land. The Midwest is known as the Great Plains, the breadbasket of the world. Great fertile soil, great growing conditions, flat, great places to grow. So the American grasslands are known for farming, of course. And then as we move more west, we get the natural border of the Rocky Mountains, which stop a lot of people from going any further past the Rocky Mountains. So that's something you want to be aware of when you're studying as well. How does that affect society? How does that affect America in the 1800s? Well, America in the late 1800s, they're trying to cross those Rocky Mountains. They're trying to settle their manifest destiny, trying to go from East Coast to West Coast. And it struggles because of those, the Rocky Mountains. They're hard to climb. They're hard to pass. But guess what? They're still hard to climb, still hard to pass. There's still only like 5 roads over the Rocky Mountains. So it's still hard to do. You can't just travel any old which way you want. You gotta take one of 5 roads. Maybe going too north, going too south. So that's something you want to consider. Okay. So that should be covering most of the things in our first packet there on geography. If we move down, we're going to talk about the colonial period. What do we need to know about the colonial period? Again, keep in mind those areas of lands we just talked about, the northern colonies and the southern colonies. So you already know you got like a northern manufacturing thing going on, and a southern agrarian farming. Agrarian means farming thing in the south. So you want to know about the triangle trade. The triangle trade was a slave trade. It's kind of more like a square, but I don't want to get into math terms. So the idea was that slaves would be brought from Africa down to the American South. Then they would be making, let's say growing cotton, picking cotton. And then that cotton would be sold to the northern states. And then they would produce something with those goods. Nice shirt, dress, just fabrics in general. And then those fabrics could be made into something and shipped off from there. That's the idea of the triangle trade, those kind of 3 places. But it's really more like a square, because you sell those products perhaps in Europe. You might keep them there in the United States, but that's the basic idea. One of the other things we want to look at, same basic concept here of trade, which is British mercantilism, and that's a British economic policy that limited what the Americans could manufacture in the United States. So if they have a lot of lumber in the United States, still do. England doesn't. So Americans were allowed to chop down trees and make planks, but they couldn't make cabinets. So you would sell those raw materials to Britain, Great Britain, England. The English, the people of Great Britain, could take those raw materials and then create that dresser. And then that dresser could be shipped back to the Americas and sold as a dresser. But this limited what the Americans were allowed to, and I'm calling them Americans, the colonists is really the term, because we are looking at everything pre-1776, pre-4th of July. Happy 5th of July. Not as important as yesterday, even less important as 2 days ago, which was the most important day, but that's for later in tonight's conversation. And the also British mercantilism also limited trade with other colonies, so that you couldn't buy like French dressers and things like that. You had to buy British dressers. All right, let's see, the French and Indian War. This is two European powers. I always like to think of this as a very poorly titled war. The French and Indian War, in my mind, is the French and Indian War, or the French and Indians versus the English and Indian War. So the Indians or Native Americans fought on both sides. So what we have here is which European power, the French or the English, are going to have control over North America. And so the Native Americans, different tribes joined up with different European powers. So they obviously sided with who they thought was going to give them the best treatment. It doesn't end well. It wouldn't have went well if the French had won either. So the English win the French and Indian War. So the English controlled North America, or like 95% of North America. There was and still is ties to Great Britain in Canada. To France in Canada. But the French lost most of the control that they had previously had. If not, we would have all been speaking the French right now. Bonjour. But we're not. So we're speaking English, and this is why. That's actually a really great way to say it. The reason you know who won the French and Indian War, because we're speaking English. Key things here. So it was a very expensive war, the French and Indian War. It was being fought over here in the United States or in the colonies. And the English needed to pay for that war. And they pay with taxes that they start to impose onto the American colonies. And the colonists get kind of annoyed that they have to pay those taxes. And we get things like the Boston Tea Party and such, which we will be getting to very, very shortly. Scrolling down here, the Virginia House of Burgesses and the Mayflower Compact are anything about town hall meetings. The reason this is in here is that this is all about early forms of representative government. So you might see something about the Mayflower Compact. You may see something about the House of Burgesses. Let me give you a little bit of background on both of those things. Mayflower Compact. When you were little and you learned about the Pilgrims? Okay, well, this is where it comes in. So you guys remember the ship, the Pilgrim Sheridan, that you learned about in like second grade, right? They came in on the Mayflower. So there they are. They're outside of what is currently Massachusetts, in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And they're on their ship still. They're on the Mayflower. And the people on the Mayflower decide before they get off the ship, they're going to establish a set of rules that they will live by when they get off the ship. That is the Mayflower Compact. The idea, what's written in the compact, it quite frankly doesn't matter. What matters is that they allowed everybody who's on that ship, man, woman, child, well, I don't know about children, but men and women on that ship got to choose what was their government going to run like. It was the first form of representative government in the United States, well, in the American colonies or the European, British colonies, whatever, in the colonies. So that's what you need to know about. And it's the same thing. The House of Burgesses is a representative government in Virginia. And that's all you need to know about them. They're a representative form of government in Virginia. That's all you need to know. So the House of Burgesses, Mayflower Compact, the things you need to know about them, they're a representative form of government. They're early forms of government showing people have control of what will later be the United States of America. Okay? And the next kind of bigger step up from that, same concept, again, next on your list, is the Albany Plan of Union, and that comes out in 1754. And this is, Ben Franklin's really big in this, and this is the whole idea of that snake, you've probably seen that, where it's join or die, and the snake's broken up into different pieces. And that is the idea of the Albany Plan, is that if we can get all of the 13 colonies to finally agree on something, then we can survive as a nation, or become a nation, not even survive. We can become a nation if we can decide to be 13 colonies, united. United we stand, divided we fall, right? That's that. Turn the page. It's fun. There we are, okay? So we're here at page 3 on the bottom. This is just some vocabulary. If you turn the next page, you get your questions that go along with it. So, just going to go down the column. I'm going to read off the answers to you, okay? So number 1 is A, number 2 is J, number 3 is H, number 4 is C, number 5 is D, number 6 is G, number 7 is I, number 8 is B, number 9 is E, number 10 is F. So again, this is great if you have any questions, you've done this for homework like you were supposed to over the summer, and you have any questions on those answers, like, oh, I don't know why you said, 4, Jamestown was C, why is that? This is a great time to kind of say, oh, I don't understand number 4. So if you have those questions, that'd be great, all right? I do want to look at some of the critical thinking that we have here. We talked about this really briefly, okay? It says first question here. So again, this is on what would be, and I didn't number all the pages. This would be page 4 if I numbered them all. Okay. What are the historical significances of the French and Indian War and the relationship to cause of the American Revolution? Okay. Hopefully you're paying enough attention. Okay. The answer that we're looking for here is money. Okay. The French and Indian War cost a lot of money. So the English, after the English won, the English taxed the American colonies. They taxed them a lot. The American colonists did not think it was fair, and they rebelled. That's the cause and effect that we're looking for there. Okay. Why was there such an uproar amongst the colonists? The Proclamation Line of 1763 was put into effect. Okay, that's that line we were talking about, the western boundary of the Appalachian Mountains, because people wanted to keep moving west. Americans love going west. They spent 2 years being an American who loved going west. Okay, Americans love to go westward. Okay, and so people get really upset with you when you tell them you can't move out there anymore, especially if you're already got family living out in Ohio, or you already did. You gotta move back east. It's gonna tick some people off. So that's what that's talking about. And number 3, how were the settlements of the northern, middle, and southern colonies affected different relationships in the economy, political, and religious differences? And you want to talk about that. At that point, you want to talk about what we talked about before. You want to talk about the environmental conditions that are different and how those environmental things impact a lot of other stuff. So just the fact that the South is warm and has good growing conditions means that it's going to make its money on farming. It's going to have slavery. Okay. The religion in the South is not as Puritan. And at the time, we can certainly question it kind of later on. So that they allow slavery. Puritans don't. Don't allow slavery. And then we flip that to the northern side, right? So in the north, they can't depend on farming. So they're manufacturing a lot of their stuff. And they're using their timber and their lumber that they've already got in the north. Thick forests. So that's what you want to talk about there. Okay, so that because they don't have slavery. North doesn't have slavery just because it doesn't make sense to. Not entirely because they're better people. Okay, there might be a little bit because the Puritans themselves didn't believe in slavery, and the Puritans were the controllers of much of the North at the beginning. But they didn't have slaves because they didn't need them. Okay, not because they're just good. And they didn't because they didn't farm because there wasn't good farming to have. So that's what you want to look at there. All right. So now we're going to turn the page. If you're my little one reads books on tape, like the ones that go ding, editing. I feel like that's what we're doing now. So the next page, number 5, is the people and groups. That's another list of good people there. And then we turn the page, and we have a little bit of work to look at right there. So we'll take a brief second here. We'll look at some of those key people. We don't need to go into too much detail on these. The assignment itself was to give 3 descriptive words for each individual. I'm going to do kind of a combo there. Kind of get some key, I guess it's basically 3 keywords really does work, but I'll explain them a little bit if you have any questions. And again, if you're just joining us, love to have you jump on, add some things to the live chat. If you're watching this live with us, it's great. It's way more fun and way more interactive if we have that going on. Okay, so a couple people. William Rogers, he is from the colony of Rhode Island. He believes in a city upon a hill, and he ends up being the governor there. Okay, then we move on to John Winthrop. He founds Massachusetts Bay Colony. He believes in the separation of church and state, and he is a Puritan. Those are my 3 things there on him. So the key thing there that I want to point out with John Winthrop is he believes in the separation of church and state. We still have this today, right? It's a constitutional law. So you can believe in whatever you want to believe, and the government can be here. Never can those 2 things interact according to church and state. So you can, believe in the 10 commandments, but that shouldn't affect the way the government is being run. Now, a lot of times, a lot of those codes of ethics that many world religions have are obviously going to be built into a government because thou shalt not kill should probably be part of a government. It is. That's why it's a law. But not because it's part of the 10 commandments. Because it just makes sense. I like being a little further away. That's kind of fun. Okay. I always like to, you got to think of Pocahontas. Come on, you've all watched the Disney movie. John Smith, he's the hero of the story, right? He's the guy who saved Jamestown down in Virginia. He rescues them from their starving times. That's John Smith. Don't let Disney fool you, though. He does not marry Pocahontas. That's John Rolfe, the man who brings tobacco to the colonies. But that's for a later date and not in the Regents. You won't see him. Okay. Nathaniel Bacon leads a rebellion against Native Americans who eat too much yummy bacon. No. Nothing to do with bacon. I have a video on Bacon's rebellion. If you want to subscribe, watch some. I have a video on him that's pretty good. But he leads a rebellion with poor farmers thinking that the new America is going to be pro-wealthy people, which it was. It was definitely founded for the wealthy, not for the poor. So he leads a rebellion. And that's what Bacon's rebellion is about. We get Samuel Adams, Massachusetts, Sons of Liberty, Boston Tea Party. Okay, so Sam Adams, major leader of the Sons of Liberty, which is based out of Boston, and they're kind of hooligans that are kind of on the right path. And they're the ones who throw the tea into Boston Harbor after they're all teed off over the tea tax, which we'll get into more in a minute. Thomas Payne, author, writes Common Sense, which makes people decide that we should rebel against England. Benedict Arnold, he's a traitor. He was an American soldier who fought for the British during the American Revolution. King George III, King of England, what did I write? a tyranny, a tyrannical ruler, the man we break up with, right? The 4th of July, happy 4th of July. The Declaration of Independence is just a Dear John letter to the King of England. It's the way I like to think about that. We're going to get to him in a little bit more. I'm going to skip the critical thinking for now. We can go back into that, but when I put this together, I probably could have put the next page, or the next few page, that page in front of the other one. So we'll get into that in just a minute. So let me go through here now. So I'm going to do the same thing where I'm going to give you guys the answers, and if you have a question, put that up on the live chat. Tell me that page 7, number 1, you wanted a better explanation for if that's the case. So if you're working with me, which you should be, I'm just going to give the right answers. And I did this in yellow highlighter, and it was a bad idea because there's not enough light in here. All right. So number 1 is 3. Number 2 is 2. Number 3 is 3. Number 4 is 2. Number 5 is 2. Number 6 is 3. Yep. Number 7 is 2. Number 8 is 1. Number 9 is 4. Number 10 is 3. Number 11 is 1. Okay, excellent. So if you have any questions on those, let me know, okay? And if you don't want to do it on the live chat, you can certainly email me at kbidlespot@perucsd.org. That's K as in the letter, Bidlespot, BIDELSPACH @perucsd.org if you want to ask me questions on this later on. All right. So we are now on page 10. Okay, page 10. We're going to look at the Declaration of Independence. Okay, the Declaration of Independence is, of course, written on, or it is not written on, it is finalized on July 4th, 1776. That date is certainly up for debate, but I'm not going to get into that. We're going to just go with that for today. And this is a breakup letter to end all breakup letters. This is the one where the United States, we are at this point, the colonies, right? Colonies decide, we don't like you anymore, England. We're going to break up with you. And you know what? We're breaking up with you because you stink, and these are how you stink. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. And they actually list it. They list all the things that the British, particularly the British King George III, is really bad at. Okay, so it's the breakup letter of the century. Okay, it's written by a committee, but headed by Thomas Jefferson of Virginia. Okay, and it's based on John Locke's theories of natural rights. And John Locke is an Englishman from the earlier 1700s. And John Locke unlocked the idea to natural rights. That is the idea of life, liberty, and property. Thomas Jefferson, because he knows that it's illegal to plagiarize, changed some of those words and said life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But the same idea. Okay, so that's the idea that's in the Declaration of Independence. And the idea is that if we're not given those natural rights by, say, a king, such as King George III, then it is our right as citizens of that nation and our duty to break away from said problem. So it is not just our right to break away, but it is our duty to break away. It is not, if our government is not doing what it's supposed to do, then we are to form a new union. Okay, and that's what it is. So we break away. We say, breaking up with you. Okay, a lot of this is coming from those taxes, Stamp Acts, Sugar Acts, Townshend Acts, Tea Acts, that have left Americans really sad, and they're not getting the tax. It's not even that Americans didn't like to pay the taxes, it's that they weren't getting asked about them. So they're being told you have to pay this tax without having representation. No taxation without representation. Before the Declaration of Independence comes out, a man named Thomas Payne writes a book called Common Sense. And it's kind of going along the same thing as John Locke's natural rights. And what this is doing is it's saying, these are the things that should just make sense, that if this isn't working for us, we fix it, right? If there's a problem, you have to fix the problem. We can't just expect it's going to get better. So that's what common sense did. And it convinced a lot of Americans that it was important to break away from England, because it never, ever had been done before. No one had just went to an empire and said, we're breaking up with you. So this was big stuff. So the United States was doing something no one had ever heard of. After the United States, it was like everyone was doing it. All the countries were like, oh man, I'm going to break up with my country too. But at the time, it was new. No one else was doing this. So we were like, we were the cool ones, right? And so the kind of the key things that led to the Declaration of Independence, that led to the Revolutionary War. Again, we're on page 10 in your workbooks if you're kind of working along with me today. Some of the other key things, the Sugar and Stamp Acts, okay, was the Stamp Acts was, or the Sugar Acts was a tax on tea. It included molasses and sugar. Wait, I don't know what hold on. Try that again. The Sugar Act, or the sugar tax, both are acceptable terms, was a tax on sugar and molasses and rum, because they're all made from the same thing. Then there was also the Stamp Act, and this Stamp Act was a tax on printed goods, newspapers, playing cards, marriage certificates, death certificates. All of those things had been taxed. It was an actual stamp that was put onto your documents. You had a stamp, hence the name Stamp Act. And also the Quartering Act. The Quartering Act was requiring soldiers were allowed to move into your house and just live there. British soldiers, whenever they wanted, whenever they needed to. And you had to provide them for housing and place to sleep and food and things like that. And people didn't like that. The Townshend Acts, which was a tax on imported goods such as tea, that was eventually dropped, but the tea part wasn't. And this led to the Boston Massacre. 5 people were killed in the Boston Square. But I'm not trying to say that the death of 5 colonialists wasn't important, but it was made to be bigger. I mean, massacre makes you think that hundreds of people were shot. It was made to be a bigger deal, so that the other colonies would kind of jump on board and go anti-England. Okay, and then after all this, we sign our Declaration of Independence, break up with England, and we fight in the American Revolution. We win. Yay! Da, 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 da. Okay, so we win, and we become the United States of America, and we basically have everything from the East Coast up to the Mississippi River is pretty much the United States of America. Yay for us! Okay, and so now, great, we're a great nation. Now what do we do? What do we do? It's like a high school student when they graduate high school. Great, you graduated high school. Now what? Unless, of course, you're a P-TECH student, because you know exactly what you're going to be doing. Go P-TECH. Okay. So they need to know what they're going to do, right? So they come up with the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation was the forerunner to the American Constitution, and it didn't work all that great, but it wasn't absolutely awful. It was a good step. So it was our first form of government. Again, it's called the Articles of Confederation. Let's see. I'm looking at my comments. That's accepting. Okay. Yes. Okay. So a lot of people in the colonies, after the American Revolution, they didn't want a really strong federal government because they had just gotten rid of a king. They fought a war over this king. They didn't want to just, have another king. They didn't want King George Washington. And then for his children, he didn't have any, but they didn't want his children then to run the country. I thought that was Justin and his mother, actually. So they didn't want, someone to come in and rule the country, and then they'd never have kind of a solid government. They'd have this crazy strong government. So a lot of people were really nervous. So the Articles of Confederation was really weak, and it was really weak on purpose so that we didn't have a strong government. However, it was so weak that it was ineffective. Things that the Articles of Confederation included or didn't include was that they couldn't coin their own money, they couldn't tax things, they couldn't levy war on foreign governments. Those were all really important things for a federal government to have the power to do. So what you really had at the time was 13 separate states that were basically acting as 13 separate countries. So it was an ineffective form of government. It was a great idea, it just didn't work. So it took some time, but they got rid of it. And what do they get rid of it with? They get rid of it with the Constitution of the United States. Now, if you're reading along with me with school, page 11, I have given you is it's a slightly different section, but it's all kind of things that we've already gone through. I put this in front of the camera would help. So I've given you kind of just some more things that we've already kind of looked at, just about different types of government that have existed in the United States, and some key things that you could look at down here on the bottom of your page is the Articles of Confederation, the weaknesses and strengths. So it talks about what it does do and what it doesn't have the power to do. So it has the power to declare war and make peace and sign treaties and borrow money, establishes a navy and a post office. Always remember, we never forget the post office. It's like every single document we ever do. But it doesn't, okay? We don't have a chief executive. There's no president under the Articles of Confederation. Maybe not a bad idea. No national court system, so there's no Supreme Court. There's no power to draft soldiers, so we don't have a way to make an army. That sounds like a bad idea, right? No power to control interstate trade. So if I'm living in New York and I'm down here in my parents' house in New Jersey, which is exactly what's going on, I can't trade things back and forth. If I own something, there's no interstate trade because we're also using different money. No power to enforce the treaties. No power to collect taxes. How are they going to make money? I know that everyone would love it if we didn't have taxes, but I really like driving on a road. I'm really like in the winter. I don't have to go out and plow from my house all the way to the school I work at. I pay my taxes, so someone else does that for me. Right? So it's a good thing, right? And if we don't have taxes, then I'm out there plowing the road by myself with a shovel. Because I'm not plowing with a shovel, I'm shoveling with a shovel. It's ridiculous. So of course, we need to pay taxes because we want stuff done for us, right? But there's no power, no way to tax from the states. So we're looking at a federal income tax. There's no national currency, no money that's the same. It's difficult to pass laws. It's very difficult to amend the articles, to change the Articles of the Confederation, okay? So that's what we're looking at there. So that's I threw a couple of these pages in here because I just really like different visuals, and I thought those were important. So take a look at those if you're reading along with us. And go to the next page, page 12. Okay, so what happens now? So we decide the Articles of Confederation aren't good. We write a constitution of our constitution, right? And so a bunch of men, only men, white men, own property, get together in 1787 in Philadelphia. It's hot, it's muggy, it's the middle of summer, it's like being down there today. And they decide, what are we going to do with this constitution? What's our new government going to look like? We can't have too strong of a government, we can't have too weak of a government, right? So there's a couple of things that we really need to understand, okay? And so you need to understand the New Jersey plan, and you need to understand the Virginia plan, and you need to understand the compromise that comes between the two of them, right? If you don't know this, don't take the test again, okay? No, we need to know. New Jersey plan, right? New Jersey is a small state. Small but great. New Jersey is a small state. Doesn't have a lot of people. Does today, but let's pretend that this is like 1787, right? Doesn't have a lot of people in the state of New Jersey, okay? Virginia is a huge state with a lot of people in it. The idea between the New Jersey plan and the Virginia plan was about how many people would represent that state in a Congress. So the New Jersey plan said that in our Congress, it should be based on equality for each state. So each state should get 2 votes in the federal government. But Virginia is going, well, that's not fair. We have a ton more people than you do, New Jersey. So we want our states to be based, we want our government's representation to be based on population of the state. So that the big states like Virginia with high populations would get more people to represent them in Congress. This becomes a very large conflict, okay? Long story short, they compromised with something called the Great Compromise or the Connecticut Compromise. The state of Connecticut comes up with the idea that we should have 2 houses of Congress. Count them, 1, 2. Okay, we should have 2 houses of Congress, an upper house and a lower house. And the upper house should be based on equality. So each state, no matter the size or population of that state, should get 2 votes. The lower house, the House of Representatives, should be based on population. And that should be based on the size of the state and the population of the state. And that could be as many people as there are within that state. We still have this today. Our Senate, which is our upper house of Congress, contains 2 people per state. Our House of Representatives, our lower house, contains our state's population plus 2. So every state has 2 representatives, or no less than 2 as representatives in their plus some. So New York, I think, has 27 representatives, where a state like Montana has like 3. So that still exists today, but then Montana in Senate still has only 2 votes, or still has 2, just like every other state, which is really cool. And it sounds really simple to you and I, but this was a huge problem. So on the Regents, what you're looking for is just the idea of New Jersey's small state, equality per state. Virginia plan is based on population, and that more populated states should get more votes in Congress. And then the Connecticut Compromise, or the Great Compromise, takes the 2 and creates what we call a bicameral 2-house system. Okay, and there's other things they need to discuss in this. Okay, one of them was the 3/5 compromise. Again, Virginia has decided, oh, we're going to do this based on population, right? This whole thing, this is great. Well, we want to count slaves as part of our population. Well, if we count them as people, well, then they're people. We can't enslave people. That would be wrong. Okay, and this isn't me talking as me. This is me pretending to be someone from Virginia in the 1700s. So we can't, well, I mean, I think enslaving people is wrong. That's not what I meant. But what I'm talking about is that if the Virginians counted them as people, then they couldn't enslave them, right? And they couldn't allow that to happen. So they counted them as 3/5 of a person. So a Black person, an African-American slave, however politically correct we want to do this one, to me, there's nothing politically correct about this. It was just the time, right? So a Black person who may have been freed, may have been enslaved in Virginia in the 1700s would count as 3/5 of a person. Okay, that's it. That's all that I have to say there. Okay, and that is called the 3/5 compromise. So it's compromising. Virginia gets some Black people to count as people, but not all of them. Okay, so that they lower their population. But do you see it? If there's questions on this, let me know. You can always look that. There's like thousands of videos and stuff on the 3/5 compromises. And then also in our Constitution, we do get a president. Yeah, presidents. We get our Supreme Court. Goes into this a little bit more here in a second. I could talk for months just about the Constitution. So some differences that we see here with the Constitution. The Constitution strengthens the power of the federal government. It guarantees Congress control over interstate and commercial commerce, so trade between the states and nations. We have 3 separate branches of government, right? We have our legislative branch, that's our Congress, which contains 2 houses, right? Our legislative branch contains 2 houses. We have our executive branch, which mostly we think of as the president. There's other people that fall in that line, but we'll just say the president for now. And then we have our Supreme Court, our judiciary system. So that's our judging kind of place, okay? So that's kind of new, okay? People who support this who support the Constitution, and they're called Federalists. They're people who support a strong federal government. They think, woohoo, make the United States really strong, do all these great things. They're wonderful. They can't do anything wrong, right? We're going to trust the United States government. We're a strong government. And then we have the people who don't believe that. They're called the Anti-Federalists. It's not that they're against the federal, well, they are against the federal government, but they're more concerned with that they want really strong state rights. And they want really strong individual rights. And so the Anti-Federalists actually agree to sign the Constitution only if they add amendments. And the first 10 they add right away in the Bill of Rights. Because the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments are almost entirely about individual rights. Life, right to your freedom of press, right to your religion, right to free speech. It's all about your rights, right to bear arms, right to have this, right to have that. That's what that's all about. And the Anti-Federalists basically say we are refusing to sign this document until you put something in about our individual rights. I got a little ahead of myself here because it's in my packet that I made for you, but we're not there yet. I just got really excited. So the basic foundation though, right? We talked about it, I guess, already. They're our legislative branch, right? Congress. Our executive branch. We're on page 13 if you're reading along with me. Our executive branch, right? We have, like I said, president, but there's other people that fall in that. You have your chief legislator, right? Your chief executive, your chief diplomat. You don't need to know all that. It's not on the Regents. And then you have your judicial branch, which contains basically your Supreme Court. And the first major case that they see is Mulberry versus Madison. Not important what the heck the case was about. I can go into it. I've got videos on it. You can watch them if you want. The key thing to know about Mulberry versus Madison is it establishes judicial review. This last Regents was like the first time in 7 years. I haven't seen that question on there, so it'll be on there in August. It'll be somewhere between 1 and 10. Mulberry versus Madison, the answer is judicial review. Circle it, put a star next to it. You got it right. You need to understand what the heck that means. What it does mean, though, because you should know, is that it means if the government has done something wrong, if the president does something wrong, if the Congress does something wrong, the Supreme Court has the right and the responsibility to review it. Judicial review. The judges review. The judicial branches review. Judicial review means the Supreme Court has the right and the obligation to review anything that they deem incorrect by the federal government or by individuals, but it's key to do with government itself. And we'll see most every Supreme Court case is there because of judicial review. Checks and balances. This is so that not one branch of the federal government gets too much power. So I'm the president of the United States. I can do whatever the heck I want to do, right? I can't do anything. Can't do anything. Why? Because you can't just create laws. There's sort of things around this, but I gotta go to Congress as the lawmaking branch. Okay? So Congress does all the hard work. Well, we can't just let Congress make all these rules, right? No. The president has what we call the power to veto. So Congress makes a law that says all people must wear underwear on their head. Okay, they make that into a law. The president says that's a stupid law. A veto puts a stamp on it and says that's not a law, it's stupid. Okay, and that's the idea. I mean, obviously, Congress isn't making really dumb. Well, they're not making underwear on your head laws, right? But that's the idea, is that Congress doesn't have all the power to make a new law. The president has the power to choose that that's not a law. That's stupid. We're going to veto it. And let's say the president doesn't veto that law, and that goes through, and that's a law now. The Supreme Court can now look at that and be like, you guys can't do that. That's taking you to court. You guys can't make people wear their underwear on their head. That's just stupid. I've said stupid a lot. That's fun. So that's the idea of checks and balances. I can give 1,000 examples of it. I'm not going to, but I could. And I don't want to do that because it's late. It's almost 10 o'clock at night in the middle of summer, and you guys are working hard. Go people who are watching this right now in the middle of summer and working hard. We have flexibility in our Constitution that we didn't have before. We can change things in our Constitution that we couldn't change before, which is why we have 27 amendments to the U.S. Constitution today. Yay for the 27 amendments, right? It's a living document that couldn't happen with the Articles of Confederation. But now every time we want to change something in our federal government, we just add something, but we don't throw the whole darn thing out. We don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, as your grandparents probably say. All right. The other thing they do is they do establish the Electoral College. If you were alive at any point from September to November of 2016 and you didn't notice something called the Electoral College, then I hope you were in a coma. I guess I don't mean to say, I say that ironically, right? I hope that you're aware that the Electoral College happens. Okay, it's 270 votes to win, meaning that each state, when you go in to vote, you vote for an elector, not for the President of the United States. So you go in and, it's 2016. You're not actually voting for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. You're voting for someone else to vote for them. And then at the end of the day, that state that you vote in, they vote all of their votes to one way. Okay. It's not going to be on the region, so I'm not going to go into a whole bunch of things there. There's some things there. If you have any questions, let me know. George Washington, first president of the United States. Great guy for the job. Chooses to only serve for 2 terms, 8 years, steps down, had led the American Revolution. Very interesting guy. Under him, there was the Whiskey Rebellion, which was about taxing people's whiskey in Western Pennsylvania. And this was big because it kind of was to check out how strong is the federal government. Answer was pretty strong. They had to have your whiskey taxed, so the federal government can enforce their laws. Whiskey Rebellion was stomped out. The United States has the right to tax you. It still do. Then we get down to Alexander Hamilton. He's the Secretary of State. Secretary of Treasury under George Washington. He comes up with a plan to pay off the federal debt because we owed a lot of money because of fighting a war. The American Revolution was rather expensive. He starts to create a national bank. We look at creating a tariff. A tariff is a tax on foreign goods. So I look at that. You're going to buy, I don't know, this bunny. Okay. Just grabbing stuff in my parents' house and putting it on video. You're going to buy this bunny. Oh, it smells. It's got potpourri in it. Buy this bunny made here in the United States. It's $5. Bam, you pay $5 for it. Same bunny. Ooh, you didn't see that. Okay, right, same bunny, but this bunny's made in China. So it's also $5, but there's a foreign tariff on it. And now the bunny is going to be $5 plus $1 tariff, so now the bunny's $6. So which bunny are you going to buy? The $5 bunny or the $6 bunny? Okay, so that's the idea of a federal tariff. Wow, that bunny stinks. It's got potpourri in it. Whew. Okay. All right, going to the next page. Oh, okay. I left you guys lots of charts. Okay. Take a look at all of these. They're almost all things that we've kind of gone through. So just kind of use that, go through that. If you have any questions, email me. Kind of going through the next section. These are the amendments. As we go through the next 6 weeks, we will probably be talking about a bunch of these kind of on and off. But I thought this was great to have kind of a quick guide to the key, because notice they're not all there, okay? The key few amendments that are like really important. They're all really important, but you know what I mean. The ones that are likely tested and things like that. So you don't have to put them to like rote memory, but it's probably pretty good to get, like, it's just good knowledge, right? It's good to know the 13th Amendment ends slavery. Like, that just makes you sound smart, and when you're playing Jeopardy, you can look like a genius, right? So, you know what? Memorize them just because it makes you a better person. All right. Now we move, we're getting pretty close to the end here. We want to go do our vocabulary practice on page 18. I have for the answers D, E, I, A, F, J, B, G, H, C. I just realized I read those without saying the numbers. So I have 1 is D, 2 is E, 3 is I, 4 is A, 5 is F, 6 is J, 7 is B, 8 is G, 9 is H, 10 is C. Good. All right. Then on page 19, we got some peoples, and then we have some letters on whatever the heck the next page was. 20. And I've got for the answers there, I've got 1 is F, 2 is H, 3 is D, 4 is I, 5 is B, 6 is J, 7 is A, 8 is G, 9 is C, and 10 is E. I will tell you, even as a history teacher with really good experience, I did struggle on that page myself. Where did I want to go over that? I thought it was really funny the way worded questions on Federalists. I put Federalists supported Alien and Sedition Act, even though that fell under John Adams' presidency. I thought that was kind of worded a little weird. So take a look at that one. And I thought, we did not talk yet about Daniel Shea. We'll talk about him. I don't remember if it's today or next week. But I struggled with him there. So that was a hard one. Okay, so if you struggled with it, that's okay. Doesn't mean you don't get to study. Okay. So page 21, events, things going on here. What was the name of our Constitution during the Revolution? It was the Articles of Confederation. And then how did the establishment of the Land Ordinance of 1785 help the United States governments get out of debt from war? It started the ability to tax and to establish new states. So that was good stuff. Okay, we have about 5 minutes left. Let me see. I don't want to miss anything huge. This last Regents was highly focused on later American history. So that's one reason, if we're seeing that as a new thing on the Regents exam, that, very much kind of this packet may not be the most important of all, which is really sad because it's my favorite of all of them. So I want to just touch on the key things. Oh, let's go over the last set of questions also, because with this set of short answers, we also will be getting to more of that next week also. So I don't want to go too worried there into some of that stuff. So I'll give you the quick answers, and then we can actually take a look at some of those last couple essay questions, and then we'll end our night here. So looking on page 23, number 1 is C, number 2 is B, number 3 is D, and that was that. Okay, so take a second and go now to page 24. These little critical thinking questions that are here, these are really important for you guys to do, even though they're not fun. And the reason that I want you guys to take a few minutes to do these over summer hot days is these are thematic essays from past Regencies. So go through and kind of think about, even if you're not writing essays out, think about, how would I write this? How would I turn this into, a 5-paragraph essay, a 3-paragraph essay, a 4-paragraph essay? How would I turn this into an essay? So and there's 2 of these. Let's just look at the first one together, and then if anyone has questions on the second one, I'll be more than happy to take them. But the theme one says, the United States Constitution not only provides a basic framework government, but also allows for the flexibility to adapt over changes of time. Okay? So that's what we've kind of talked about, right? We don't throw out the U.S. Constitution whenever we think there's a problem with it. We ended slavery in the United States. We still have the same exact Constitution that talks about slavery, but we didn't have to throw the whole thing out. We just changed the wording of the Constitution. So how do we do that, right? And then it says, identify 2 basic constitutional principles and discuss how each principle allows the government to adapt and change in the United States. For each constitutional principle you discuss, to describe a specific historical circumstance when the principle was used to meet the needs of the American political, social, or economic lives. Well, I just gave you one, okay? So when the Constitution of the United States of America was established, there was slavery, okay? So that's like one, like you can, and the principle, because the question is asking to describe 2 basic constitutional principles. Principle to me would be life, right? So, or freedom, or any of those fancy words like that. So the principle is individual freedoms. I have freedom of the press, the freedom of speech, the freedom of, all that wonderful stuff. I'm a slave. I don't have those rights. So I would say, basic constitutional principle, the freedom of not being someone's property. That's not how it's worded, but that's what I'm going to talk about as my first thing. I'm going to talk about how, in America, in the time of the writing of the Constitution, there was slavery in the United States. Once we went through a bloody civil war, they realized they needed to change that, and they changed it through the amendment process and made the 13th Amendment of the United States no slavery. That's the sort of thing. Now, this is where you have to think on you have to think all the time on the regions, but you have to think a lot on these thematic essays, because there's a good chance that you were out there and you read that and you're like, I have no idea. Well, I don't know anything about constitutional philosophies and frameworks and principles. No, I don't know any of this stuff. It's stupid, right? Okay, that's how teenagers talk in my head, at least. Okay? But then when I gave you that suggestion of slavery, were you not all like, oh yeah, duh? That's really easy. Yeah, it was. But by God, you had to think for 5 seconds, and you can do that because you guys are smart. But you got to think outside the box. What do I know? What do I know about slavery? Anybody who's past 4th grade knows about slavery in the United States of America, right? And you guys just get smarter and smarter and more knowledge about it. So write about something you obviously know. So you had to do 2. Now you got to think again. What are you going to write about? Write about, how about who gets to vote? Women get to vote. African Americans get to vote. Native Americans get to count as humans at some point. Late. It's like the 60s before the Native Americans got to count as humans, according to our Constitution. But that's what you want to do, okay? So, basic constitutional principles. The right to vote. Suffrage. There's 3 amendments to the U.S. Constitution about suffrage. Blacks, women, people 18 years old and older. That's 3 things you can talk about. People's right to suffrage. And when you look at something like that, that's talking about change, right? Because that's what it's talking about. Specific historical circumstances, how it met the needs politically and socially, the change itself, and things. Just think about those amendments that we had here. You could basically, where'd they go? There's that nice little chart that I leave you guys went. I don't know, you guys can find it. You guys are smart. You go back to that chart and you just work backwards. Here it is. Right, so here's my chart of the amendments. How do we work backwards? Prohibition. Well, what the heck was going on in our Constitution that we could change prohibition, right? We talked about slavery already. Excessive bail. What the heck was going on in the country that we had to change excessive bail? So think outside the box with some of this stuff, okay? Because you guys are smart, you can figure it out. But with that, I'm going to end our evening's discussion. And I hope this helped. Next week, we will do, it's probably like next 20 something pages. I don't have the page written off the top of my head. I don't have it memorized. And I believe it'll be myself again next week. Mr. Benko, for those students who I do have as students, Mr. Benko will be coming on and doing one or two of these, but he is currently on vacation right now. So actually, so am I. I'm at my parents' house in New Jersey, but he's like on an actual vacation, not like 5 hours away. He's like really on vacation. So you will get to see him as well. And I hope everyone's having a really great summer so far. I hope everyone enjoyed the 4th of July and thought a little bit about the men, yes, and women, but I do mean, unfortunately, at the time, I do mean men who fought for our rights from Great Britain to be the nation that we are today. I hope everyone continues to have a safe and happy summer holiday. And I will see you on the internet next week, same time. Again, if there's any change in time, I will let you know at least 24 hours in advance. I will try to send out an reminder email again next week too. And also, if you're one of my current students now, please pass this along to anyone you think you should be passing this on to for their studying, okay? So if you have any questions, again, you feel free to email me at kvidalspa@perucsd.org. That's kvidalspa, BIDELSPACH @perucsd.org. All right. Thank you. All right. Have a good night. Bye.